Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. Maurice is off tonight, but I am pleased to welcome a man who has had quite a tenured career in the pro wrestling business. He was a wrestler for NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, WWF, and now runs the Texas Wrestling Academy as the head trainer. I'm, of course, talking about Mr. Rudy Golzalez. Rudy, thanks for coming on tonight, sir.
Thank you very much for having me on, Jack. How are you doing today?
Just great. I'm looking forward to this interview, but I'd like to start off with asking a question which kind of gives the fans some insight as to how you became involved in the business. And that was, were you a fan of professional wrestling growing up? And if so, were there any particular territories or companies that you followed?
So I wasn't a fan at all of pro wrestling. My dad used to watch it growing up late night, Saturday nights here in San Antonio. And I was in the next room doing, playing, games or whatever with my brothers and sisters, and my dad took me to a couple of wrestling shows downtown, and that were ran by Joe Blanchard and Fritz von Erich. It was called All Star Wrestling, and I wasn't interested, to be honest with you. I just wasn't interested. My thing when I was growing up was football, and so as luck has it, though, my high school football coach was also the football coach of a semi-pro football team here in San Antonio, which was called the San Antonio Toros. And one of his players was a running back named Joe Benarski, and who later on became Ivan Putski. And another player he had was Frank Goodish, who later on became Bruiser Brody. And he had some other players on the team that were part of the local wrestling scene. And he was also very good friends with Joe Blanchard, who is now the promoter of his own promotion called Southwest Championship Wrestling. And so through my football coach, I went to talk to Mr. Blanchard about training with the guys during the Christmas break between the semesters of 1981, 82. And so, I got in and I tell everybody the same thing. I went into the wrestling office January 2nd of 1982, and I haven't left yet.
That's interesting in so much as you somewhat fell into the business. In terms of your training process, what did that entail for you specifically?
So the training was at the Southwest Wrestling School was a lot of mat wrestling. The guy that was running it, his name was Larry Lane, and he was an all-Army wrestling champion. He was, I think he was a medalist in one of the World Games or something. I mean, he was a big-time shooter, and so that's what we concentrated on. And then every now and then, like Manny Fernandez and Tully would come in to work with us, and some of the guys, and you just kind of catch on from stuff, and then they offered me a spot as a referee. And first I helped with the ring for a while, and then they offered me a spot as a referee. And it was funny because, and guys don't believe it, but it actually happened. But like I would referee the first two matches of the shows, and nobody smartened me up. So when I was refereeing and I'd ask guys, hey, you give up, that type of stuff. They would turn their bodies, got to see their backs. So I could hear them talking to each other, but I didn't know what they were saying. I couldn't understand them. They, for all I knew, they were saying, I'm going to kick your ass or something, and I'd come around, hey, what'd you say? And then they'd turn their back to me again. But what they were actually doing was calling spots. And I didn't know that. And no one told me finishes or anything like that. So I counted guys. until their backs were on the mat for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and that was it. And then that was the first 2 matches. And then finally one day, like after a couple of months of that, they pulled me to the side and they said, okay, this is what's going to happen in the main event. And then this, and this, and you're going to run in there, and then you're going to, and I was like, how do they know this? Again, I had no clue that wrestling was what it is. So I remember thinking that, how do they know that's going to happen? What do these guys know that I don't know? And then, I guess I did well. It's on, and there's a video of it later on or on YouTube, but it got to where Brody and Abdullah the Butcher had a match in San Antonio, and I've been told it was Brody's call. I don't know. I wasn't in the room when they had that discussion, but it was Brody's call to have me go out in the middle of the match, and they did a deal where the other referee got hit, and so they need to get another referee out there to control the match, and so that's where I come in, and that was Brody's call. And someone told me later on, when you made it when Bruiser Brody puts you over, and at that time I didn't understand, but now I do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What in terms of the psychology after you were smartened up, we often decry today in terms of the current product a lack of that ring psychology, etc. How was that process instilled in you after you had been smartened up to what the business was about?
The only thing I'd really ever told was and it's kind of contradictory, but I mean it makes sense at the same time, is to do stuff that makes sense. Don't do anything that may be stupid. Make it make sense, make it mean something, and don't insult the fans' intelligence. And and that can be very easily told, but it takes a lot of thought to do things that make sense. Have an entertaining match, suspend the fans' disbelief, and at the same time don't insult them. So it's not just as easy as just going out there and doing stuff. You have to put thought into your match, and it the first few matches that I called on my own were horrible, and I would go to the back and I wouldn't get chewed out, but I would get the why did you do this? And I explained why, what I was thinking in the match. And okay, so does that make sense? You just did this, but now you're doing this. Where's the logic in that? And when you think about some of the stuff, then it's like, yeah, that didn't make sense. So you really have to think about what you're doing, and like I said, make sure that there's a logical reason why you're doing whatever it is that you decide to do. There has, don't waste your time. Wasting motion and stuff like that all comes into play. But it has to make, the stuff that we did, you had to really think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So after your referee tenure, you started working yourself. Do you remember much about your early sort of the period when you were breaking in as a wrestler?
So, and I tell my guys today the same thing. I don't know, and maybe you would know this better than I, since you talk to so many people, but I don't know of many guys that actually said, all right, on September 1st, I'm having my first match. Because a lot of guys that I came across, they started wrestling because there was a no-show somewhere, and they needed to fill a spot. And hey, this guy, he's available, and so they put someone's, so and so in the ring. My story's no different. I was the referee for some of the smaller shows that we did, and like I said, the first couple of matches, and then I got to where I was refereeing the whole show, but none of the big shows, like the little towns that we would do, stuff like that. And then one day somebody didn't show up for our TV show, and my job was to ring the bell. And so I was there early, had the hammer in my hand, ready to ring it. We're doing TV. And one of the wrestlers, Al Perez, comes walking up. And I had been training with Al for a little bit, and some of the other guys also. And Al Perez says, "What size shoes do you wear?" And I said, "I wear 10.5." He says, "What size shorts do you wear?" I said, "Medium." He goes, "Come on." And I was like, where are we going? He goes, "Just come on, let's go. We got it. We don't have time. Let's go." So he takes me to the back in the dressing room, and there's Eric Embry, there's Jonathan Boyd, and there's Luke Williams, and they were all kind of like bookers and what have you. And so Jonathan Boyd says, "What size shoes do you wear?" I said 10.5. And he says, "What size shorts?" And I said, "Medium." And so he said, "Does anybody have a pair of boots Rudy can wear?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean boots Rudy can wear? What do you?" And Eric Embry gave me a pair of extra boots he had, and then Bobby Fulton gave me a extra pair of wrestling trunks he had, and they said, "Go put this on. You don't have much time. Hurry up." So I was like, "Holy shit!" So I changed, put whatever they gave me, I put it on, and as soon as I had it on, all right, you're next. And I had no time to think about it. I had no time to, I didn't even know what the finish was. And so me and a guy named Manny Villalobos went out and wrestled the New Zealand sheep herders, who at the time were like bad dudes, and they weren't like the bushwhackers you saw on TV. They were bad dudes, and by this time I already knew wrestling was whatever it was, but even still, I saw Luke, and Butch beat up some guys along the way as a referee. So I'm like, man, what I just get myself into? So we do the match, and they put all the boots and what have you on Manny, on my partner. And again, I had no clue what I was doing. So I just hear Luke Williams say, "Tag Rudy, tag Rudy." So Manny, crawls and tags me, and I jump in. And then by this time, the crowd they're going nuts. The volume was just, we were in a small venue, and there's about 300 people there, and it was loud. So Luke is telling me, kind of like the voice I'm using now, "Punch me, and then punch me again, and then clothesline me." And then I hear Butch Miller running. I see him in the corner of my running in the ring, and he's saying the same thing: "Punch me, clothesline me," and that's what I do. And then they cut me off, and then I hear somebody say, "Tagging Manny." So I kind of knew what I was, I knew about the selling part and stuff. So I kind of staggered to the ropes, tagging the other guy. He comes in, they do the double knee thing, whatever they did for finish, and they pin him, and that was it. And that match was probably 5 or 6 minutes, but it felt, sometimes when I look back, it felt like an hour. Sometimes when I look back, it feels like it was a minute long. It was just, everything happened so fast. And then when I went to the back, Jonathan Boyd said, "You did good." He says, "Keep training with these guys. You need to get your own stuff, though. You need to get your own gear, get your own boots, and what have you." He goes, "Once you have your own stuff, then we can book you more often." There I was.
That's awesome. You were in a golden age of wrestling in Texas, and you've already mentioned some notable names, but do you have any personalities that you encountered, aside from Brody, the obvious, that stand out during your sort of embryonic stage in the business there?
I tell everybody the same thing. I was blessed to come into the business when I did. The first match that I saw, apart from my dad, actually the match that hooked me into the wrestling business was between Tully Blanchard and Wahoo McDaniel. One of the guys that caught my attention doing promos and making crowds react and pissing people off and stuff was Eddie Mansfield. Mm-hmm. And then there was Gino Hernandez, and then there was Dick Slater, and then there was Tiger Conway Jr., and then there was Al Perez. Then the Guerreros came around: Chavo, Hector, Mondo. And Eric Embry and Ken Timms were a tag team. Ken Lucas came into the area with a young Ricky Morton. Hercules. He wasn't Hercules Hernandez then. Ray Fernandez later on became Hercules Hernandez. The Honky Tonk Man was down here as Wayne
Ferris.
There you go. Yeah, his name just slipped my Wayne Ferris. He was out down here before he was a honky tonk man. I mean, there Hacksaw Dungan was down here. I mean, there was a Bruiser. I'm sorry, Buck Robley was down here. I mean, and at that time, all those guys were they're just guys to me. But as the years went by, and I realized who I was around, I was like, holy cow! You know, I was not many people can say they were around as many studs as I was when I first broke in, and everyone that had something to say to me was a learning experience. Everyone. I mean, there was, I run my school now, and I tell my guys, no one ever took advantage of me. No one ever tried to bully me. No one ever tried to push me around. As a matter of fact, a lot of those guys either they didn't mess with me at all, which was very few, but the ones that did tried to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something I asked for. I didn't tell guys to help me. I come into the dressing room and somebody would say, "Hey, kid," Bill Howard, "Hey, kid, slow down," you know, and um, I didn't know what he meant by that. So I'd go ask him, "What do you mean? What do you mean slow down?" And then he'd go into a lecture of taking your time, doing stuff, making things mean something, or maybe I'd come to the back and someone would say, you got to react with the crowd, work with the crowd. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And then they'd go into a lecture about working the crowd and communicating with them and using, which I use today, using relationships with your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, as an example of communicating, with the people outside and that type of stuff. So, I mean, I came in at a time, like you said, it was a golden age. And we had Terry Allen down here in his beginning days, who later on became Magnum TA. I mean, I I, I came in at a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it didn't last very long because things started changing at that same. I came in and I kind of fit in. It's just that I was very green with the rest of the talent. But then WWF came in. And then we have John Studd, who's like 6'6", and we have Lex Luger and Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy, and all these 6'6" guys and 300-pounders, and I couldn't fit in. I couldn't even, I mean, I was just way too small.
Mm-hmm. A fan on social media wanted me to ask about a legendary figure in Texas wrestling, although he worked all over, including Australia. Did you have any interactions or encounters with Playboy Gary Hart?
Gary, so I did. So Gary was part of the World Class Group, was out of Dallas, and so April of '85, Joe Blanchard sold um, the company to another guy named Fred Barron, and Gary Hart came in as the booker, and um, Gary was a smart man. The only problem I may have had with him was he brought in a guy named the American Ninja, and he was putting him over as this unbeatable machine guy. And so, he asked a couple of guys in the dressing room, "Do you want to work with Ninja? Do you want to work with Ninja?" And everybody said, "No, no, no," because the guy apparently was a legitimate badass. I mean, he really was. He really knew he was a karate guy, and he really knew his stuff. So Gary asked me, he goes, "Would you mind working with this kid?" And he goes, we're gonna take you out on a stretcher, but I promise you, brother, you come back, we're gonna make you a star." And so I figured that's how you do it. You got to, do it the promoter, Booker, or whoever asks. And, you know, after a while, they'll put you over. So I said, sure, no problem. And so we did a thing. It's on YouTube. So we did a thing where I did a couple of moves to him, and then he gives me the old karate chop right at the throat. Boom, I fall down like a sack of potatoes. They get the ambulance out there. I get carted out. And so he tells me, "You need to be out for a month." He goes, "Stay home. If you have to go get groceries, send somebody, a friend or somebody, but don't let anybody see you out in public." I think it was like 85 or so. I said, "All right, no problem." So I did that. And then about 3 weeks later, he calls me and he says, "I'm going to send so-and-so over to your apartment. you're going to wear a neck brace. Anytime you go anywhere, you got to wear that neck brace. I said, okay. So sure enough, guy showed up, put a neck brace on, went to the grocery store, went to the mall, went to wherever, go eat, and I had this neck brace on. And so I had to do this deal and stuff. And so then a couple weeks of that, and then he called me and says, we need you in Austin, Texas. And I said, all right, here's my break. Here I am, big time. So call time was like 6 o'clock or so. I showed up at 4 o'clock. I was ready to go. And so he pulls me and Brody, Bruiser Brody again. He pulls us to the side. And he says, Frank, you're going to do this, and this, and you're going to da-da-da. And then they're going to pull the stretcher out, and they're going to take him out. And then Brody says, didn't we just stretcher this kid out last month? And Gary Hart was like, yeah, brother, don't worry about it. And so Brody was like, that's not right, though. And Gary said, don't worry about it. We got it taken care of. And I'm thinking to myself, this ain't no superstardom stuff. This isn't. So, but I listened to the conversation. And so finally Brody told Gary, you know what? I'll take care of it. Don't worry. I know what you want. I'll take care of it. So we did the match. It's on YouTube. Brody kills me. And the ref, he keeps stomping, doing whatever he's doing until the referee finally disqualifies Bruiser Brody. So I get my hand raised. And then that enrages him more. So, and then he just puts the boots to me again, beats me. And then they call the ambulance and I get carted out. So I have a win over Bruiser Brody. I get, but that was, and then after that, I was kind of like, I know a lot of guys put Gary over, and I do too. Smart dude. That one experience gave me a bad taste in my mouth, and I didn't really want to work with him anymore. I worked for the company a little bit longer until I had some issues with the promoter, and then I just walked away.
Mm-hmm. So how did you first get in the mix for Jim Crockett Promotions, the NWA, get those bookings?
I'm sorry.
No worries.
So when Joe Blanchard sold the company, I was very close to him. He was I always went to Joe for advice. I would sit in his office and we talk and whatever. And then when he sold the company, I went to go work for World Class. And I didn't want to. I didn't, because World Class at that time was our competitor. Mm. But I still kept a relationship with Joe Blanchard and went to his house and visited whenever him and his wife would go see Tully, who was living in the Carolinas. Whenever they'd go visit, I would watch the house for him. I loved him to death. He always took care of me. And so Joe ended up getting a job with Crockett Promotions. And he was what they call an events coordinator, which the show his territory was everything west of the Mississippi. So we had a show in Phoenix, Arizona. Joe had to get there early, make sure tickets were sold and newspaper ads and radio and all that stuff. And so since he was going to these towns, they gave him a ring to carry with, he'd get a U-Haul or a Ryder truck or whatever and take the ring also. And then he would have to set it up. And Joe he had a bad hip. He was older. And I'm not knocking him at all. He was just an older man now. And sometimes he could get ring help. Sometimes he couldn't. I think he had a couple of guys help him, and it didn't work out. So one day he calls me, and he says, "Are you busy next week?" And I said, "No, I'm not." You need anything? He goes, "Can you help me? Can you help me put the ring up in Tahlequah, Oklahoma?" And I said, "Sure." He goes, "They'll pay you well." He goes, "I'll make sure you're taken care of. I just need help with the ring." I said, "All right." So we met up. We drove to Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And it wasn't, I wasn't kissing anybody's ass. I just had a lot of respect for the man. So we got in a truck, and I'm like, "I'll take care of this." So I put the ring up by myself. And so we did that and came home. We left. So the show was on a Saturday. We left Friday morning, did the show Saturday, got a hotel, did the show Saturday. and then went back to the hotel, and then we were home Sunday. So I got paid the travel time. I got paid, so much money for each day I was on the road, and I got a per diem, and I got paid for putting the ring up. And so, and I'm not talking about $50, $60. I mean, they were paying very well. So we got home, and Joe said they'll send you a check in a week or so. I got my check, and I was like, holy cow. I said, did they make a mistake? This is a lot of money. And he says, no, I told you I'll take care of you. He goes, do you want the job or not? And I said, sure. So every show after that, Phoenix, El Paso, Bakersfield, Las Vegas, wherever, anything west of the Mississippi, I was on the ring crew. I was a ring crew. And then so we'd get to the venue, and then Joe would go to the radio stations or TV station, whatever, and do what he had to do. But I would set the ring up. And that's how it was. And then finally, Kevin Sullivan asked me, because he had worked a couple of shows for Joe Blanchard. So Kevin Sullivan asked me if I wanted to referee. And I said, sure. So he said, all right, next trip, bring your referee outfit, your referee gear with you. So I did. And then after a little bit of that, somebody didn't show up. And so, in Iowa, the old rule is always bring your wrestling gear with you. So somebody there was a no-show. So someone said, you got your gear? And I said, yes. So I was doing the ring for Crockett. I refereed on occasion, and I wrestled on occasion. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just repeating what I was always told was I was dependable. I did what was asked. I never complained about it. I felt from day one, I've always felt grateful to be part of the wrestling business. So even when things went bad, I never complained about stuff. Wasn't going to get anything solved. So I just went, I learned to roll with the punches and just do what was asked and work, do my best and work hard and just, be a company guy. And so there I was. I'm not sure what happened, but I think there was a money issue somewhere, or I'm not sure. But Joe finally called me after a couple of years of doing this. Joe called me and says I got released. And so I'm like, shit, what does that leave me? And I asked him, I said, well, where am I? And he says, you might want to call Jody Hamilton, who was in charge of the ring stuff and all that, whatever. He goes, and he'll tell you what to do next. So I called Jody up, and I'm like, hey, Mr. Blanchard just told me he got released. And Jody's like, yeah, gotta watch our money, and it was a financial issue. And I said, where does that leave me? He says, well, unfortunately, you guys, it's going to cost a little bit of money. But as soon as we get back on our feet and we start we're back in the money again or whatever, we're going to call you. Everybody here likes you. We're going to call you. I said, all right. I'm still waiting for that call. But I mean, it was what it was. It was 2 years or so. there was a no-show in El Paso, Texas. And I got to work with Luger for the NWA World Title. There was a big pay-per-view in Phoenix, Wrestle War. That was 91, I believe. This local Spanish station sponsored a match. And so they paid for it. So it was me, a guy named Ultraman, I believe, and against Eddie Guerrero and a guy named El Huicho. And I think El Huicho later on became Damien 666. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But I had a good time working for them. They paid me well, and I traveled, and I saw the beginning of Oz, and then he was gone. I had a great time working for the company. I was there when it went from Crockett Promotions to WCW. Mm-hmm. I had a good time.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up a couple of those names. You seem to the company appeared to have significant faith in you. In addition to Eddie and Luger, you worked Larry Zbyszko and quite a few of the workers of the time or any time. But in terms of that title shot at the Great American Bash against Luger, How did that particular situation come together?
So what happened was, this was towards the end. This maybe we can research this more better than I can't than I can pull up off the top of my head, but there was a problem with no shows. Guys were getting contracts but they weren't making the towns. Guys were under guaranteed contracts and they weren't making the towns. So I know we did a show somewhere and two guys didn't show up, and so I got put in a tag match. Me and Ricky Morton with somebody, and with another team, and so then we did El Paso, and Grizzly Smith walks in. He says, "You have your gear with you?" And I said, "Yes." And he walks back out of the dressing room, and he asked somebody else, "Hey, do you mind working Luger or whatever?" And they said, "Well, I'm working with this guy." And then he asked somebody else, "You want to work with Luger?" And I'm working with this guy. And so Grizzly comes with me, goes, "You mind working with Luger?" And I was just, I'm thinking to myself, does he really ask me this? Because at the time, Lex Luger was the NWA World Champion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, sure, I don't mind. He goes, "Great, get your stuff on." And so I know, if I remember correctly, I know there was an issue. Luger didn't want to do the match. I know him and Grizzly had an argument about it, and then so finally he walks in the dressing room and says, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I don't care. I don't." Again, and this is my attitude even today, even doing this right now. I'm so grateful to be in this business. I'm so happy that I've been part of it, and for Grizzly to ask me that, and I know he asked me because nobody else was, there was nobody else. I was like I was the you hear that, even if you were the last man on earth, I wouldn't marry you. I was the last man on earth, and so and Luger wasn't happy about it, and he's asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I don't care, man. I don't, I'm getting paid the same whether." But also at the same time, at that time, I didn't do the flips and dives and all that stuff. So he says, "All right." So we went out there and had like a 5 minute. It wasn't a long match at all. It was a quick match, and that was it. Joe Blanchard joked around. He goes, "How'd you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We're coming back home." And he's like, "How in the world did you manage that, man?" I said, "I have no idea." He goes, "What I would have done was take him down, not let him up, and then take the belt." And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "You wouldn't have made it to the dressing room, but that's what I would have done." And I'm like, I don't. I wouldn't. Then it didn't even cross my mind.
Cool. So I mentioned Eddie Guerrero already, but who would you boil down to your, if you could pick a favorite WCW NWA opponent, who would that be and why? Anyone on the roster That you faced, yeah.
that I've already faced or that I'd like to face?
That you did face, and then we can do a part B as a like to for sure.
Yeah, by all means, Eddie Guerrero. I mean, at that time when we did that match in Phoenix, all they told us to go out there to do was just go out there and have a good match. And so my mindset was just don't screw anything up. Just Eddie was even back then he was a better performer than all three of us. So let him do what he wants to do and stuff. But I didn't make any attempt to try and outshine him or outwork him. I just want to keep everything, simple. But if we could run it again, by all means, I'd love to work with him again and see how that works out. I'm not saying I'm going to outwork the guy, but I think we'd have a very good match.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that let me add this in, and that's him at that time and me at that time in my prime, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm old and take it easy, brother, that type of stuff. But back then, if we would have had a match like a week or so later, it would have been a far better match.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In terms of this time frame, you started in 91 to do some work for WWF syndicated television. How did that transition take place for you?
So there was a guy here named Dusty Wolf, and he worked pretty regular for WWF at that time. And I'm not sure what happened, but he made a phone call and said, do you mind going to Indianapolis next week or whatever, in 2 weeks or whatever. And I said, sure. I said, how are we going? He says, they're flying us in. Just got to worry about food, but they got catering, but they're going to cover our hotel and they're flying us in. And I said, sure. And I went in there and, I was the enhancement guy. I did what I was told to do. Again, just did what I was told to do. I didn't try and, I wasn't trying to be a smart ass with anybody. And the next time that, the opportunities came around, he called me again. He says, do you want to do the next loop or whatever? And I said, sure. And I did that for 3 years. It's just, it got to where one of the first matches, I think it might have been the first match that Sean had after he switched on Marty, was with me. And Sean just said, come on, let's go. And I'm like, where are we going? He said, you're working with me. And I'm like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know. I just need for you to sell. And so it was, if you watch the match, I think he did like 4 or 5 things. Bam, hit me, went off to the side, and he did his thing with Sherry, fixed his hair or whatever. And then, when the time was right, he came back and got me, and there was timing on both sides. And so after the match, there, Sean told me I did a great job and thank you and all this. And then after that, I remember showing up to the arena, and not Randy Savage, Scott Hall. As soon as I walked in the door, Scott Hall grabbed me and says, "You're coming with me." And I'm like, "What did I do?" He goes, "Come on, bro, you're coming with me." So, and he told, I think it was Tony Correa. He goes, I've got Rudy. And when you get to where guys, because I saw a lot of guys when I was doing the enhancement stuff, that they would tell somebody, "You're working with this guy," and they'd be like, "Ah, shit," But when you have guys that are requesting to work with you, and that's a feather in your cap. And again, back then I didn't realize it, but now when I look back, and it's like, holy cow! I worked with Virgil. I had like a little match with Virgil. Yokozuna. I came to the back, and guys were like, "You okay?" Because he did the where he sat down on my chest.
Bonsai.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Guys, are you okay? That looks stiff. Are you all right, bro? And I'm like, I'm fine. So the fact that I got called back so many times told me that I was doing something right. And so to this day, man, whenever I get a chance, man, I thank Dusty Wolf for making that call for me and for bringing me up. Again, more than grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, we had the pleasure of interviewing Dusty on this channel. Excellent discussion. Before we delve in a little bit granular detail with some of your matches, wanted to ask you this comes up all the time, and even more so, unfortunately, in recent days. But just if you had any notable interactions with Mr. McMahon. Not like that.
Talk about getting put on the spot. I don't know what happened. I don't know anything about that stuff. I'm just like everybody else, reading the dirt sheets and whatever. And I got called by Bruce Pritchard to do a deal with JBL to build up the Eddie Guerrero thing. And so we went out in the field and did this vignette, whatever they call it. And the first time they showed it, I believe, was in San Antonio. And I had brought in some guys to do enhancement work and stuff. And so they were in the ring, and I'm sitting there in one of the chairs by the ramp. And I look at the corner of my eye, and he's walking down the ramp. And up to this point, I'd never talked to him. I never communicated with him. Nothing. We'd walk in the corridor. I'd put my head down. Never had any kind of interaction with Vince McMahon. And so I could hear him walking down the ramp, and then he stops. And he's like right next to me. And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Rudy, heck, what job you did." He said something like, "I appreciate it. It's really going to help the storyline. He said it's really going to help further the storyline. Thank you very much." And he walked off. He didn't have to do that. At all. I got paid well for that also, but he didn't have to do that. And so it kind of like let the lump in my throat. I felt like I did something. And then as time went, months or whatever, and I saw the storyline, transform and progress and what have you. And again, looking back now, that was a big deal in that JBL and Eddie Guerrero's story deal. That was a big deal. And today guys are like, you can't do that today because of political correctness and all that stuff. So what makes that segment even bigger because of how it was put together. JBL guarding the border, and I'm coming in as an illegal alien, and whatever. And I've always thought maybe if I threw the idea out there that, hey, here's the illegal alien guy, now he's a wrestler, and bring him back, but I never threw it out there. But I mean, I don't have any, I'm just sitting back like everybody else, reading the dirt sheets. Is it, but with me, and I judge everybody how I'm treated, how they treat me. So with me, I mean, he didn't have to thank me the way he did.
Yeah, and that seems to be the consensus of individuals that did work for the WWF around that time, or basically any time that McMahon was very respectful to the guys coming in doing enhancement work and whatnot. So yeah, I think that speaks for professionalism in that respect anyway.
Right.
Wanted to ask you about Yokozuna though. Your match with him, we've spoken to some other folks that had very negative experiences with him in the ring, being very rough, et cetera, et cetera. And I take it, because you took the finish there and you didn't break any ribs or anything, that you did not have that experience?
No, not at all. You know what? And again, it's just I learned to look back and realize I didn't have to be in this business. So I've always had great appreciation for being part of like this everything, whatever I've taken part in. I've always greatly appreciated the opportunity. And I've never tried to main event nobody. I've never tried to give attitude to anybody. I've never tried to portray myself as being bigger than the wrestling business. And I think guys saw that, because Bruiser Brody was another guy. If he didn't like you, he would boot your head off. There were a lot of guys that I worked with that guys would tell me, watch out, man, he's going to mess you up. And I never had nothing, I can't really say that I felt, even when Yokozuna, what did he weigh, like 500 pounds or something?
Yes, north of 500 pounds. Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, he did the drop thing, and I don't want to expose too much, but I didn't feel 500 pounds. It could have been you dropping on me. It wasn't, but again, like you said, I've heard guys say, man, he cracked so-and-so's ribs, or he did this to this guy, or he did that. Bam Bam Bigelow did his was it Bigelow? I don't remember. One of the bigger guys did the 450. I mean, not the 450. The big splash.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't feel a thing. I've never been. I can honestly say, and I'm not trying to put myself over in any way. I can honestly say that I've never been stiffed by anybody to where they've tried to hurt me because I've been an asshole to anybody. And and then I go to the back and, hey, thank you very much. Thank you, brother. Next time, be safe, whatever, and we go on our way.
Mm-hmm.
I think when stuff like that happens to guys, there's a reason for it. You know, the match I had with Brody was I was with a guy named Bill Rathke, and so they told us it was a 2-on-1, and Bill said, "Well, you know, we pissed somebody off," and I'm thinking, why would you say that? And we went out there, and it's on YouTube. Brody booted Bill in the face. I mean, he beat him up. And then when I come in the ring, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And so I barely felt anything. I didn't, you know, I'm not saying it was like, you know, like cotton or anything like that, but I mean, I'm with Bruiser Brody, so it has to be a little on the stiff side. And then when we go to the back, and this guy Bill is like, "Did he beat your ass like he beat mine?" I was like, "No, I'm fine." You know, and Brody would come to the back and he'd shake my hand, "Thank you, brother," and then he'd walk the other way, and this guy got nothing. You know, so I think it's all in the way you treated guys, and then you gain their respect, and you know, I mean, you don't got to barbecue with guys and stuff like that, but just, you know, treat each other, you know. And I know some guys have that ego and whatever. And that's fine. You can have your ego all you want. I'm just going out there to try and earn $1. That's all.
Yeah, respect. Did you have either in Texas or the Federation any encounters with the Dingo / Ultimate Warrior?
I shared a dressing room with them, but that's about it. I never had to. I'm trying to think. I never had a match with him though. But I mean, you know, he was wired. He was, like we say, he was on. Whether it was on chemicals or not, I have no idea. But he was always intense. You know, he was always what you saw on TV is what, you know. I mean, every time I saw him, that's what you saw on TV was what you saw in the dressing room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In fact, when I worked with with WWF, I believe he even had his own bus. He had his own traveling bus, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite a polarizing figure, to be blunt. In terms of the recent attention on World Class and the Von Erich movie, I don't know whether you checked that out, but you certainly have intimate knowledge of the territory and the personalities in it. I would assume. Did you happen to see the Ironclaw or have any interpretation of it?
My son wants to go see it. I don't want to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is, I didn't know David. I met Kerry. Kerry was a hell of a guy. He was a nice guy. Mike was a good dude. Kevin was a little on the cocky side. You know, and that's fine. I mean, it's the Von Erichs were like gods down here. But when I left Joe Blanchard's promotion and went, you know, I went to go work for World Class Wrestling, and they always treated me well. I mean, I don't have anything negative to say about them. Was there drug use? Yes, but in the 80s, that was everywhere. Yeah. So I mean, I have today I have good memories of the boys, and like I haven't seen it, but someone told me like Mike's portrayal is, you know, after his toxic shock syndrome episode, um, uh, he wasn't the same mentally, and I don't remember. I know I saw them. I know I saw him a little while after he started wrestling against stuff, and I don't remember. Again, I'm older, so maybe I'm missing something, but I don't remember being him. I don't remember him being not able to speak and stuff like that. You know, slurring his words and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to see it. I like Kevin. I like Mike. I like Kerry. Kerry was like, it's a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
The family is what it was. You know, I don't know. I've heard how they're portraying it, and I mean that could have been the Mannings with Archie and Peyton and Eli. I mean, you know, and I guess what I'm getting at is every dad wants their son to be the best player, the best actor, the best whatever, and they're going to push them, especially if you're in, like, I guess what they're saying is Fritz didn't get to um, uh, live his, get everything he wanted out of wrestling. So he was taking it out on the boys. And again, that I coached Little League football, and I saw a lot of dads, telling me my son should be a quarterback, and their kid has no business being a quarterback, but they want them to be a quarterback because they want their son to be the hero of the team, and probably in the past the dad, screwed up somewhere, and so I can see it happening, and I don't fault them for it. It's I think the whole Von Erich situation was sad. But I have some good memories, and I don't want to, and there's probably stuff that I don't know. I don't want to see a movie that's going to reveal things, I'd just rather stick with what I have. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, my son's like, Dad, but you knew those guys. You knew that, yeah, but I don't want to see it, Steve. And he's like, well, I want to see it. I don't want to see it, I'll probably break and go with him, or maybe I'll catch it on Netflix or something, but it's not on my to-do list right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I saw it in December, and it's certainly very, very well acted, but not uplifting. And, someone who knows world class backwards and forwards will find lots of gaps in the whole, story, because it was only, a couple hours, whatever. Jeremy Allen White, who played Carrie, excellent actor, but I just couldn't get over how small he was, considering how small he is, considering how big Kerry Von Erich was. So there was some difficulty.
And that's one of the things is Kerry wasn't just a big man. He was larger than life. I mean, Kerry was a rock star. I mean, he was, and seeing the pictures, and I don't know who the actor's name, but seeing the pictures, it's like, this is Kerry Von Erich. And I'm like, no, it's not. No. I mean, Kerry was larger than life. All the boys were, but Kerry especially.
Can you talk about, and I know you did some work, Independence, and then you did a couple of shots with Ring of Honor and et cetera, but I want to get your feelings on the issue of the business moving away from enhancement talents, and whether or not there should be some recognition thereof in terms of the crucial role that they played during one of the most successful periods in the business. We're talking 80s, 90s, et cetera.
Man, without the enhancement talent, some of those stars wouldn't be stars. There should be some kind of recognition for those guys. But it is what it is. I think getting away from using enhancement talent meant you got to put your stars against each other on TV. And sometimes that's just not a good idea. You're giving away matches for free that you could be putting them at the arena somewhere. But I mean, that's the way the business went. That's the direction the business went to. So, I mean, who am I to question, doing that? I mean, I run a promotion also, and I do 100 people, 125. Meanwhile, the people that are making those decisions, they're in arenas and stadiums with 14,000, 16, 20,000. They do WrestleMania, 100,000 people. So who am I to question that? So, I mean, I just sit back and I watch how things play out. And if I can participate, great. If there's no room for me, that's fine too. I'll try and find a way to be part of whatever it is that's going on.
Can you talk about how you came to the Texas Wrestling Association Academy, and how you came to be the head trainer, and some of the work that you're currently doing down there?
So I just told a story the other day. In November of 98, I did a show in Laredo, Texas, and this is just regular independent wrestling. story. I did a show. I got screwed around on the money part. I had already spent 15 years or so in the business, and I wasn't happy with my pay. So I had my envelope, walked out the door with my bags. I still had my wrestling gear on, gave it to the booker, who was Jose Lothario, gave him the money, and he said, "What is this?" And I said, "That's my money. I don't want it." And I walked out. I quit wrestling. I quit the business. Done. And that was a Saturday night. Monday, I went to go get a job at a warehouse here in San Antonio. And Tuesday, I got hired, and I had to go take a drug test. So I took Wednesday. I went to go take my drug test. I come home, and I get a phone call. This is in October, November of '98, and so I answered the phone, and I said hello, and they're like, "Speak to Rudy Gonzalez." I said, "This is Rudy," and it says, "Rudy, this is Sean," and I said, "Sean who?" It says, "Shawn Michaels," and I'm like, "Who is this?" This is Sean, and the group of guys that I hung around with at that time, I could have swore it was one of them playing a rib. So I said, "F you," click, hung up, and phone rings again. Hello, Rudy. Yes, this is Sean. Sean who? Shawn Michaels. F you, click. This happened 3 times. This happened 4 times. And finally, phone rings. He says, "Rudy." I'm like, "Yes." And he was like, "Don't hang up." And I'm like, "Well, who is this?" He says, "This is Sean." I said, "All right, what do you want?" He says, "Are you going to be at Jose's show Friday?" And so there I knew it was a rib. I knew they were just trying to get me to go to the show to try and get me to work. I said, "Nope, done wrestling." And he says, "Can you meet me there?" And I said, "No, I'm not wrestling." He said, "I'm not asking to wrestle. I want to meet you at Jose's show. I want to meet you Friday." And I said, "What time?" He says, "Be there by 8. Match started at 8 o'clock. He says, "Be there by 8. I said, "All right, we'll see." So Friday comes around, 8 o'clock. I show up. Jose's at the front door, and he's like, "What do you want?" And I said, he goes, "Oh, you came to wrestle?" I said, "Nope, didn't come to wrestle." He says, "What do you want?" I said, "I came to meet Sean." He says, "For what?" I said, "I don't know. Came to meet Shawn Michaels." And so he said, "Oh, you can sit over there." So I went to where the fans were sitting. I sat in the back row, and the match has started. And first match goes on, second match goes on, no Sean. It's like 8:15 now, and I'm like, man, I know I got ribbed, son of a gun. So I'm trying to figure out a way to get out of the place without being seen, without looking like an idiot. And all of a sudden, there's maybe 100 people there, 75 people. Everybody just, and then runs to the door. And so I look over there, and I see all these fans or whatever, and then I see Sean standing over him. And I'm like, holy cow, he really is here. So this crowd, whatever, they go behind me, and Sean goes to the dressing room. Everybody grabs their seats, and I'm like, okay, well, he didn't say anything to me, so I'm getting to walk up, and then Sean stands next to me. He's like, "Wait right here. I'll be right back." So he goes and talks to Jose or whatever, and he comes and sits next to me, and he just told me, he says, I'm going to do back surgery in a couple of weeks. Or I think he might have said a couple of months. But in the meantime, I'm going to be out, so I want to start a wrestling school. And I said, "All right, that's cool." He goes, "I want you to be one of the trainers." And I said, "All right. When is this going to start?" He said, "In April." So we're in November of '98, and so he's talking about 4 months, 5 months later. So I'm like, okay. I had just got a job at a warehouse, and I was making like $12, $13, $14 an hour, and I was working 50 hours a week, so I was making pretty good money. And finally, I was at the point in my life, because I'd been in the wrestling business since I was 18. So finally, I was on the point at the point of my life where I was making a weekly check, had benefits, the whole 9 yards. We had just got, four checks into my new job, and we put a down payment for a house, and a whole different world, than what I'd been living the last so many years. And so April comes around. Sean says training's going to be from 9 to 12 in the morning. So at that time, I was working from 12 noon to midnight, and so I just left train a little early, or went to work a little later or something. And during this time, I had been passed up on promotions and stuff and raises, not because of attendance or behavior. But the one that killed me the most was I got hired the same day as another guy at the warehouse, and he got a raise because his uncle was, in another department stuff. And one of the guys explained to me, well, the reason why he got a raise was because his uncle is in the meat department. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So now we're playing politics, and I left the politics stuff in the wrestling. Now I'm back in the politics frying pan again. So that didn't sit well with me. That, and then at the end of the day, I wasn't happy. Yes, I had a regular job. I was making good money, and, I was getting things and doing things I wasn't doing the last 15 years, 16 years or so. And it was a different life, but I just wasn't happy. And so when the school was started getting going, one day I just quit going to work. I just quit going to work. And then my kid's mom was like, "Are you on vacation or something?" After a couple of weeks, she's like, "Are you on vacation or something?" And I'm like, "No, why?" She goes, "You haven't gone to work in, week and a half or so." And I'm like, "Remember I told you that time that I talked to Shawn Michaels about a wrestling school and stuff?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm working for Shawn full time now." And she goes, oh, "Okay, how much is he paying you?" And I said, $250 a week. And man, the shit hit the fan. I was with the warehouse. I was making $8,000-$9,000 every week and stuff. And with Shawn, I was making $250. But I was smart enough that I saved my money and stuff. So, I let her blow off all her steam and what have you. And she said, "Why did you do this to us? You're going to put us. We're going to be out on the street. We're going to do this." And I'm like, "Look, I wasn't happy. I was not happy. And something will come out of this, I'm sure." I didn't know that. I didn't know, but I was hoping. And so we were on some rocky grounds there for a while and then so not even a month after Shawn started the school, he fired Jose. They were bumping heads about something, and he fired Jose. So now it was me, Jose Lothario, and Ken Johnson, and Shawn hired Jose. And then Jose and Ken were buddies. So Jose said, "Well, since you're bringing me, can you also bring in Ken?" And so Shawn hired Ken. And back in the old days, Shawn paid Jose to train him, but Jose had Ken Johnson get in the ring and do all the physical stuff. So there was that connection. So Shawn didn't want to fire Jose, but they had a fallout, and so Jose left, and then it was just me and Ken. And then Jose and Ken had a fallout. I think it might have a little bit to do with Shawn and Jose, but Ken and Shawn had a fallout, and then Ken left. And one of the things that he said when he left was, "Are you coming with me?" And I said, "No." And so he's like, "All right, well," he left. And then Shawn looked at me and goes, "Do you want to go with him?" I said, "We're in the middle of training." I said, "Stop." So I pulled Shawn to the side. I said, "You hired Ken and Jose together as a package. I'm not part of that package. So if you want me gone, say so. Otherwise, I'm not leaving." So Shawn said, "All right, it's me and you." I said, "Okay." He brought in Paul Diamond for a little while to help, but Paul's main job was to book towns and stuff. But Paul would show up to the gym and help out with training and stuff as well. But it was just Shawn sat outside the ring, and I was doing all the stuff in the ring. And then January of 2001, Sean walked in. He said, I re-signed my deal with Vince. And I'm like, okay. He goes, so I'm going to shut the school down. And I'm like, why? He said, I can't run the school and work full time for WWF or WWE, whatever it's called at that time. He says, so I'm going to have to shut the school down unless you want it. And I was like, what I got to pay you for it? He says, nothing. He goes, your loyalty has been more than enough. And I said, all right. And that was it. I took over from there. That was, I mean, he just signed a new group of kids. So he was committed to those kids from January till the end of March because the groups were 3-month sessions. So March came around. He told the guys, hey, I'm done. Good luck to you guys. And then April 9th of 2001, got the keys. And that's it. I keep in contact with them. Every chance I get, I tell them thank you. Again, more than grateful for the opportunity he gave me. I was around a lot of good kids, still am. I got the chance to train some good boys that have gone on to bigger and better things. And I see them on TV, and I'm more than proud of them. And they reach out to me, hey coach, hey Rudy, how you been? Out of nowhere, I had no idea until someone sent me the clip. But out of nowhere, last year, last year I think, Brian AEW did a show here in San Antonio, and for whatever reason, Brian mentioned I was trained here by Rudy Gonzalez, Shawn Michaels on TV, on their TV. And why did he do that? I have no idea. Appreciation? Again, he didn't have to do that. So, I keep in contact with Brian Kendrick and Paul London. For whatever reason, they're bumping heads also. And I love both boys. And I've tried to, why don't you and Paul sit down? Or why don't you and Brian sit down? And they won't do it. And it's like a dad and his two sons fighting about whatever it is they're fighting about. I have no idea. And I'm not going to side with one. I'm not going to side with the other. I haven't even asked them what's going on. I've just told them both, maybe you guys need to sit down and talk, this guy, F him, F that, whatever. And it hurts me. It bothers me, but it's wrestling, man. It's, it's real life.
Well, Rudy, this has been a fascinating discussion, but before we wrap it up, can you let the fans know where they can follow you on social media and keep up with everything happening in the Texas Wrestling Academy?
Sure. You can follow me on Facebook, mainly is where I'm at. I have Instagram also. Facebook is Texas Wrestling Academy. There's also our promotion, Texas Wrestling Entertainment, on Facebook and on Instagram. The promotion is Texas Wrestling. With the wrestling school, I mean, I've gone 3 times to the performance center. So what I do is I try and bring what I learn over there here and prepare guys better so that if they ever get the chance to do tryouts, whatever, they'll kind of know what to expect. We just moved into a new facility. We train Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, and we put everything out there. I mean, let's see if I can do this. So, so there's our ring, and I mean, we're going to start doing events here once a week so that the kids, one of the biggest obstacles kids have when they come out of wrestling school is they have no experience. So we're going to allow kids come in here, do matches, do shows. I'll bring a crowd in here. So I can only hold about 50 people, but that's more than enough to get experience working for crowd stuff. That's really it. I mean, I'm still trying to get guys out there. There's more opportunity than there is today, but there's also not as much opportunity. You just gotta, where to go, who to talk to, and that type of stuff. Anything I can help with guys with. I have guys that I haven't even trained that message me and ask me to look at video or critique their matches or what do I need to do about this, or how do I get my name out? I'm open to everybody.
Well, it sounds like you've got an exciting operation down there. We'll keep in touch, and please keep us advised as to any developments with the school. We'd love to have you back again. Fantastic storyteller. I want to thank you sincerely for your time tonight.
Thank you, Jack. I really, 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 really appreciate you giving me the opportunity. And anytime, just let me know, and we'll do this again.
Excellent. Well, fans, that's it for another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the like button, and you will keep up to date with all the exciting content like this that we have coming in 2024. Until then, take care, everybody.